Welcome back to Just Talking. We have a great show for today because we have an excellent guest here today, filmmaker Chris Paine. Chris, nice to see you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jason.
Well, let's start off. How did you get started into filmmaking?
I suppose I'm like one of those kids in fourth grade. We had a very charismatic teacher, and she had us make a film about the California Gold Rush, and I was pretty excited about it. So my friends and I started making movies in high school, and I think the first official movie I made was as a producer for my friend Mark Neal, who did a film about William Gibson, the science fiction writer who coined the word cyberspace.
Oh.
And interesting documentary. We basically took an old Lexus and we treated all the windows of the vehicle like a green screen. And then we drove him across America, a very introverted guy, Canadian. And he talked about the future. And that became No Maps for These Territories. I didn't make my own film until my experience with my own electric car. And we tried to get television news to do a story about that. We couldn't get them to do the story. So we decided we would make our own film about it. And that became Who Killed the Electric Car.
Oh, it's done so well that being your first one, did you consult other filmmakers, documentary, how to put it together, or did you just go right out of the gate?
Oh, sure. Documentaries take huge communities of people, and we had some very experienced people helping us and very non-experienced people. The heavy hitter on our film was Dean Devlin, whose dad was an EV1 enthusiast like I was. And Dean had just done The Patriot with Mel Gibson, and he had done Independence Day. And so I had cut together a teaser with Kathy Weiss and Tav and Titus, the two women that were helping me at the beginning of this film. And we showed it to Dean, and he said, "This needs to be we need to make this as a movie." And so he gave us the financial resources and some leads, and off to the races.
In 1996, electric cars began to appear on roads all over California. They were quiet and fast, produced no exhaust, and ran without gasoline.
You had Martin Sheen to narrate it.
Oh, sure. Well, Martin Sheen, I had met as an activist. When I got out of college, they were still unbelievably testing nuclear weapons in Nevada. And as a Californian, a lot of those of us that were opposed to Central American wars going on then in Nicaragua and El Salvador were protesting against not only those wars, but nuclear testing in Nevada. In fact, if you were in a skyscraper in Las Vegas in those days, they set off a bomb. I'm talking about 1980s. You could feel the skyscraper move back and forth. And not only that, there was all kinds of radioactive dust coming up. So we had gone out there to protest and try to shut these tests down. Actually, a group of women protested, took what got right to ground zero for the testing and shut down one of the tests. And Martin Sheen was there also protesting, and we all got arrested together. And we take it into a huge outdoor compound. And it was, I won't minimize it, it was pretty scary, but we all had trespassing permits from the Shoshone Indian tribe, because they contested with the military out there that they own the land. And they loaded us all up in a bus, and we got taken up and released at a county courthouse in the other side of Nevada. So that's where I met Martin. And years later, he was doing The West Wing, and we have a mutual friend, and Allison Janney. And Allison asked her co-star if she would help me out on this film, and he said, sure.
Believe it or not, that sucker goes. That thing will take you so fast you could get a ticket.
Wow, I didn't know this existed. How come I don't know about this?
You could just feel that people, especially out in California, had enthusiastic response to the EV1. Or
yeah, you make an excellent point. I mean, I think as we talked about in email before, it's like, if you believe in things and you're willing to like go out and meet other people that believe in those things, you create like a network of folks that are trying to change things for the better, in your view. And that's how we came upon Martin for the film. And the EV1 community was just like that. In fact, maybe even tighter because there were so few of us.
How long did it take from starting with the idea to the actual finish of the film?
Well, I am a very slow documentary filmmaker. It usually takes me 5 years from when we start talking about it to when something gets finished. And a lot of that is, especially when we started making films in 2000, it takes a lot of money. You have to raise a lot of money, and it takes a while to find the right investors and all the rest of it. And then films are kind of like Frankenstein in a way. You think you're making this film, but then you end up making that film. And in the case of the electric car film, we thought we were making a comedy. But once we started making the film and seeing the unbelievable shenanigans that went on to kill these cars, that like self-defeating, future hating, all the rest of it, we said, well, this is a murder mystery. And so all by itself, that kind of thing you can shoot hours and hours of footage, and then you realize that it's not this way you're going, it's this way. And you can probably make another 5 films out of any one documentary film you watch.
And I even liked how you bring up the suspects of the movie, who killed it. Like you said, it's a murder mystery, and then you say the suspects, and it's almost like you're letting the audience decide too, that here's the layout of the case, and this is what they should think who killed it.
Well, you see, this is exactly right. I think audiences feel like they want to be part of the decision maker, and they want to be part of the solver. And if you're making a preachy left-wing film or a preachy right-wing film or something, then you go, oh, this is a preachy left-wing film, or you write it off. But if you felt like you're being offered into the guts of the movie, and then you can sort of make your own decisions, we were very careful not to call a conspiracy. And by the ending of the film, as you know, we were very careful about who we name as the murderers at the end. It was kind of like that movie Murder on the Orient Express, which we used as a template for the film.
And I also got to credit the camera crew, because there's so many shots in the film, and that keeps it moving. You don't want to do too much, but enough to sort of keep them involved. How many, behind the scenes, are you doing the camera work, or do you have a number of different people?
I always do a little bit of camera work, but I am not. I have a good eye. I mean, I know myself well enough, but I cannot keep up with technology. It's in fact, most of the best shooters really know their camera or a limited number of cameras, and they can work with them. So one of the big tasks in documentaries, I think this is true even today, is being able to conform different kinds of cameras into a common look and feel by the time you have an outputted thing. So in in Who Killed the Electric Car, there's probably 30 different cameras to make that film,
Wow.
Including the archival footage that we use from old days.
The one thing that was really neat is that, again, how I was enticed by it was the marketing of it. Where I love the poster, I love the trailer, I love the title. Were you involved in the marketing, or is that when Dee Devlin takes it over and sends it to his marketing department?
What a great question. Well, the original name of the film was Driving with the Brakes On. And the idea being that anyone who knows an electric car knows that when you put your foot on the brakes, you're actually getting power back into your battery. But it seemed like a great metaphor for what the car companies were doing with their own creations, electric cars. They were promoting them, but they were also killing them at the same time. But we realized that was just a little bit too geeky of a title. When Sony bought the film from us at Sundance, he goes, yeah, you don't need, just make the film Who Killed the Electric Car. Just make it straight out. Like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's not street cars, but electric cars. And so that was sort of the progression of the title of that film.
People were not going to wait around to have the solution delivered to them.
I want to show the world that it's really possible.
This is the future, and it's attainable.
So let's move on to the follow-up, Revenge of the Electric Car. did you expect to make that? Like, I think the first one was 2006, and the next one was what, 2011 was it? So, or there's a few years
Yeah,
between the two.
5 years.
So it almost like it took a life on its own, because not only did other people now know about the electric car, so did you pick up on that, or were you always following the electric car news behind the scenes?
That's precisely what happened. We finished. We started making Who Killed the Electric Car, I don't know, 2003 or something. Came out in 2006, and as soon as it came out, you began hearing that, well, hey, maybe the electric car isn't dead. We even get letters from school kids like, hey, I know someone. And by chance, we had filmed one day with Tesla in 2005, at the very, very beginning of Tesla. And they go, Tesla looks like it might be something. And we go, well, heck, maybe we don't want to have our legacy be the super negative, who killed progress, the Watergate era never ends, things will never change. Let's make a movie about how, instead of protesting things from the outside, you could change things from the inside. And about that time, I approached Elon, and who was just finished his first rocket launch there out of Polynesia. And people didn't know who he was. I barely knew. My friend Roger had told me about him, and he loved Who Killed the Electric Car. He goes, that's a great film. I go, well, I'm thinking, maybe I should do another film about, the comeback. He goes, well, why don't you come film the Tesla for a while? So that began the beginning of a 3-year behind the scenes in the early days of Tesla, before the Roadster was even, finished. And so we started shooting that, and we used the leverage of that to get Bob Lutz to agree to let us film in General Motors, even though General Motors considered us the arch enemy of all time, because we had given them such a hard time in Electric Car 1. And then Carlos Ghosn, now better known as the guy who escaped Japan in a suitcase, decided to let us into Nissan. But Ford said no, Toyota said no, a lot of companies told us no, no, and no. So we were just very fortunate when we made Revenge of the Electric Car to have as much access as we did. And it became a very different film than the first film.
Yeah, and that's what I do like about it. So again, with sequels, is that it's a different format, because the first one's sort of like telling that story, and this one's now following these 4 individuals on the creation of their electric cars and who's going to get there first. And you're right, when you're into those boardroom meetings, once again, we see them maybe in 30 seconds or a minute clips, but you had to have been recording maybe hours of footage of that, trying to figure out what pieces to pick.
Tell you how many requests we get for the Carlos Ghosn management meeting that we filmed in Japan, and how difficult that was to do in the first place. And to edit that scene so that it seemed interesting, that to give a feeling for how Carlos operates as a business manager, how tough he is, and how committed he was to electric cars. He really was. It's just a shame he got so derailed.
Now, my question as I was watching it is that with the mandate in the first one, as it was explained, the mandate was taken away in California. And my question is, why is there now car companies making electric cars when there isn't a mandate? When there isn't a mandate now.
Wow. Well, that's going to. That's one of the great things about this whole story is we went from 0 electric cars to a world where it's almost accepted fact that it's going to be the majority of all vehicles manufactured in the world will be electric. That in less than 20 years. The whole zeitgeist has changed around it. It's a miracle. As an environmentalist, I think that's the other hat that I wear. You don't see that. Most things just keep getting worse. And the promise of the electric car, of course, we have to make sure that we do batteries responsibly and motors responsibly and everything else. So it's not like a free ride. But the electrification of transportation and using renewable energy to do it is one of the great, happy stories of our time. And I didn't expect it to happen as fast as it did. That's probably going to be big content for our third film if we get it off the ground.
Okay, well, as far as today, you're the one to ask. what's one of the best electric cars out there if I was going to go get one? Or
Well,
what's
the
your
good news is that you can buy used electric cars now in
Oh.
addition to new ones. And so they're becoming more and more affordable and approachable. For a long time, you had to be either a super true believer that was willing to do anything to get one, someone, a do-it-yourself guy like Gadget was in our second film, or you had to be very wealthy and in order to afford anything. And you still have to be pretty wealthy, but cars are expensive. And electric cars are really getting very close to being dollar for dollar completely competitive with gas cars. And everybody's making them. In fact, the good news is that there are so many electric cars that are coming into the market now that I can't even tell you which one I would recommend. I drive a Tesla Model 3, which I'm really happy about. Been an amazing vehicle. But my mom and dad, they drive a GM Bolt, and that's an amazing car. And they got it for very affordable monthly rate. So yeah, I'm just glad to see there's a lot of options.
And even with charging stations, maybe we could talk about that. I kind of went on some websites where you Google where the nearest charging station, and people should do that. That it's not out just in California; it's down the street or near the highway. How do those work? Do you just pull up and you charge for how long, and then you go, or do you do it at home when you charge your car?
Well, that's a cool thing. You can do it at home, or you can do it on the road.
Okay.
The Tesla chargers now charge at 500 miles an hour. So if you say how many miles can I get in in 10 minutes of charging, that's a lot of miles. But fast charging is incredibly fast. You can in the time it takes for a bathroom break, you can have your charger can already go another 150 miles. So that's really going very fast. And if you don't have access to a supercharger, you can charge at any outlet at anybody's home in the world. So there's millions of outlets everywhere. It's a slow charge, but it's not like gasoline, and definitely not like hydrogen, where it takes a lot of infrastructure to put in a service station.
So you said that your next one, you may do a third installment on the electric car?
We may do a third installment. I mean, there's so much more to the story now.
Yeah.
And there's, people don't go to theaters for documentaries as much. I mean, hardly at all. So you got to find the right streamer to say, okay, I'm going to watch the new Harry Potter movie, the new Marvel movie, or I'm going to watch a documentary. If so, which one? And you really want to make sure that you come up with something that's compelling enough that you're really drawing people into wanting to watch your documentary. I found that there's a lot of documentaries that can be pretty depressing. You'll have very great information in them, but I try to make films that aren't super depressing.
It was a great topic and great films as well.
Okay, I just want to say that Wisconsin was one of my very first areas of having super fans for our films. We went out to that Midwest Renewable Festival a couple times.
Oh, great.
We went to Madison and Milwaukee, and we went all over Wisconsin with our films when they came out. We had some great fans there, so we appreciate that part of the country very much.
Oh, thank you so much. And like I said, we support you and the electric car industry all the way. If people want to see more of your work, is it online, or do you have a website or anything like that people can?
Yeah, if you go to Papercut Films, papercutfilms.com, and then there's a list of all our films and how to see them.
Well, Chris, may I thank you so much for talking with us today. Once again, you're a great filmmaker, and your movies are just absolutely excellent. And thank you so much for talking with us today.
Okay, thanks, Jason.